Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem. Please rise for the national anthems. Performing the Star-Spangled Banner is the U.S. Army Brass Quintet, and performing Israel's national anthem, Hatikvah, is the Joshua Tutener Anchor Choir of Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please welcome Israel's Ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer.
I want to welcome Speaker Ryan, senators, members of Congress, members of Israel's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, dozens of my fellow ambassadors, and all of you who are here at the U.S. Capitol. I also want to welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu, Speaker Edelstein, members of the Knesset, Ambassador Friedman, and all of you who are there at the Israeli Knesset. To the thousands who are attending events in all 50 states across America, and to the millions who are joining us live, online, welcome to a celebration of a unique moment in the history of the Jewish state and in the history of the Jewish people. A moment that occurred exactly 50 years ago today. To understand how unique that moment was, one must appreciate what Jerusalem means to the Jewish people. For over 3,000 years, Jerusalem has been the center of our national and religious life. Our patriarch Abraham passed his hardest test of faith on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. King David founded our capital, and King Solomon built our temple in Jerusalem. The prophet Isaiah defied the army of an empire atop the walls of Jerusalem. The prophet Jeremiah lamented a destruction and foresaw a return in the caverns of Jerusalem. The Maccabees rededicated a defiled temple and restored a lost sovereignty in Jerusalem. The people of Israel made a pilgrimage 3 times a year for centuries to worship God in Jerusalem. And the people of Israel fought and lost a war of independence against Rome in Jerusalem. Despite that devastating loss, despite 2,000 years of wandering, despite the unimaginable suffering that a stateless, powerless people endured, Jews across the world turned toward Jerusalem 3 times a day to pray to rebuild the city and renew it as in the days of old. The Jewish people swore never to forget Jerusalem. And for 20 centuries, under wedding canopies and in houses of mourning, the Jewish people remembered Jerusalem. Jerusalem is so central to our national identity that it takes only 3 Hebrew words to express the hopes and dreams of an entire people. V'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem. That is why what happened on June 7th, 1967, was a modern-day miracle. I don't know if there is a comparable moment in the history of nations when the hopes of 100 generations were realized in a single place at a single time. Those who witnessed it can hardly describe it. Those who lived through it will never forget it. And we who are privileged to live at a time when Jerusalem is united and free should always be grateful for it. Ladies and gentlemen, King David chose Jerusalem as his capital to unite the tribes of Israel. Today, a reunited Jerusalem once again serves to unite Jews within Israel and across the world. But it is not the Jewish people alone who have reason to celebrate today. Under Israel's sovereignty, the Jewish and Arab residents of Jerusalem coexist in an open, diverse, and vibrant city. And under Israel's sovereignty, the sacred sites of Christians and Muslims are protected, and people of all nations and faiths are free to walk Jerusalem's streets, admire its beauty, and worship God. If there is a country outside of Israel that appreciates what Jerusalem means to both Jews and non-Jews alike, it is the United States of America. Americans express that appreciation each day as tens of millions pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And that appreciation was expressed this week when the U.S. Senate voted overwhelmingly to reaffirm support for a united Jerusalem and for recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Truth is, America and Jerusalem were bound together from the very beginning. 400 years ago, John Winthrop was aboard a ship from England filled with pilgrims searching for freedom and hope in the New World. He famously called this promising land a shining city on a hill. And for centuries, America has strived to be that shining city on a hill, a beacon of hope and freedom for its own people and for all humanity. So it could not be more fitting that today, Americans across this great nation have come together to celebrate Jerusalem, the eternal shining city on a hill. Today, America and Israel celebrate 50 years of unity, 50 years of freedom, 50 years of hope for a city, for a country, for a people, and for the world. Thank you.
Please welcome Speaker of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein.
Shalom, my dear friend, Speaker Paul Ryan, thank you very much for the event. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, Ambassador of the United States to Israel, Mr. David Friedman and Mrs. Friedman, Ambassador of the State of Israel to the United States, Ron Dermer, members of Congress, senators, members of the Knesset, distinguished guests. Shalom Chaverim, Bruchim Habayim L'Yerushalayim. Welcome to the Knesset, welcome to Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the State of Israel. Har Habayit Beyadeinu, the Temple Mount is in our hands. These words were uttered by Colonel Montagur 50 years ago today, on June 7th, 1967. This sentence changed the course of history, excited the world, and touched the heart of a 9-year-old boy in the Soviet Union behind the Iron Curtain. That boy was me. Thanks to these words, I'm standing here today as a Jew, as an Israeli, and as the Speaker of the Knesset. These words echoed around the world to millions of Jews who rediscovered their ties to the Jewish people and the State of Israel. In the Soviet Union, Jews signed up for Aliyah. Many like me were denied that right. The ancient call of Moses, "Let my people go," echoed in the halls of the US Congress where you sit today. I am eternally grateful to your colleagues in the Congress those days, in the 70s and 80s. You allowed me to reach this moment, this day, and this event. In the United States, too, many Jews left the comfort of their home to realize the Jewish dream. Some join us here this evening to celebrate this special anniversary. Ephraim Greenfield heard about the Six-Day War and jumped on a plane to Israel to volunteer. He fell in love with the country and returned here to study at Hebrew University for a PhD. After graduation, he co-founded Ophir Electronics in 1976, one of the country's early high-tech successes. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, since 1967, Jerusalem has again become a spiritual center where members of all religions may practice their faith freely, where the sounds of Jewish prayer mingle with the voice of the muezzin and church bells, where pilgrims come to seek God in synagogues, mosques, and churches. This is Jerusalem, reunified 50 years ago today, never to be redivided. Join me on a tour of Jerusalem with an opal Bible in your hands. Find the pages with the prophecies of comfort by Zechariah and Jeremiah. You will see men and women of ripe old age sitting in the streets of Jerusalem. You will hear the voices of brides and grooms. You will also find a city that has become a center of arts, education, and cutting-edge technology. Jerusalem, like no other place in the world, bridges the ancient and the modern. Dear friends, your country was settled by pilgrims building, as our ambassador already mentioned, a city upon the hill. A just society based on the values that the Hebrew prophets preached right here thousands of years ago. These same values are the basis of the special bond between our peoples and countries. They are the real reason why Israel has always enjoyed broad bipartisan support in Congress and Senate and in every state capital. Thank you, Speaker Ryan, for your continued leadership in this regard, and thank you all for your friendship. 50 years ago, Israeli paratroopers touched the Western Wall, the very stones where your president recently prayed, the first sitting US president to visit the Western Wall. For the sake of Jerusalem, let us not remain silent. Let us promise that support for unified Jerusalem remains high on both sides of the aisle, across the political spectrum, and throughout the United States. Looking around the world, and especially at this region, one thing becomes crystal clear. Only Israeli sovereignty will ensure that the city's holy sites remain open, free, and safe for members of every religion. I therefore call upon the administration. Follow the lead set by the House and Senate. Recognize Jerusalem as the official and unquestioned capital of the State of Israel. Bring your embassy to our capital. The 50th anniversary of reunification is the appropriate occasion to take these important, just, and historic steps. I am sure other countries will follow your lead. Let us pledge together. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Yom Yerushalayim Sameach. Happy Jerusalem Day to all of you.
Please welcome Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, my friend, Speaker Yuli Edelstein, Ambassador Dermer, distinguished guests and friends, I am so honored to be with you here in our nation's capital on this historic anniversary. Our commitment to Israel dates back to President Harry Truman, who recognized the state within minutes of her declaring her independence. It is that legacy, one that's been tried and tested over the years, that we are here to reaffirm today. 50 years. Can you believe that? It's pretty amazing. Some of us weren't even born yet. Isn't that right, Ambassador? The Prime Minister was just wrapping up high school. 50 years ago this week, Jerusalem, the spiritual and religious capital of the Jewish people for 3,000 years, was made whole again. It came at a very heavy cost. 776 Israeli soldiers lost their lives in the Six-Day War. Brave men and women, not much older than my own kids, fought to save Israel from imminent annihilation. That included a 32-year-old paratrooper reservist named Shimon Kahaner, Katya, as his friends called him. Katcha led his unit into battle on Ammunition Hill at 2:30 in the morning on June 6, 1967. For 6 long hours, they fought Jordanian troops in trenches on Mount Scopus. Katcha made it out alive. 24 soldiers in his battalion did not. But through their sacrifice, the IDF won the Battle of Ammunition Hill, and over the next few days, reunified Jerusalem. Katcha still returns to this site often. And on a visit a few years ago, he said, quote, "Every day, I feel the honor that I had to be responsible for Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not the same as any other place." He's right. There is something so special about Jerusalem. I just returned from there last summer on my first overseas trip as speaker. When you walk the streets and see the stones of the old city, when you place your hand on the western wall that encircled Solomon's temple, when you kneel before the tomb of Christ at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, when you celebrate Catholic Mass at the Catholic altar mere feet away from the site of the cross at Calvary, when you walk the stations of the cross, you cannot explain this in words, but you feel it. It's unlike any other place in the world. Only in Jerusalem do Judaism, Christianity, and Islam converge at the roots of their faith. And only in Jerusalem can followers of the 3 great monotheistic religions worship at some of their most holy sites safely and peacefully. Let's not take that for granted. It wasn't always like that. Jerusalem's been destroyed, rebuilt, captured, and recaptured from time immemorial. Thousands of people have died over thousands of years fighting in and for this city. But without Jerusalem, the Israel we know today would simply not exist. In December 1973, just a couple of months after the Yom Kippur War, a 27-year-old IDF soldier scribbled a letter to his younger brother, Benjamin. He wrote, "I don't intend to tell my grandchildren about the Jewish state in the 20th century as a mere brief and transient episode in the thousands of years of wandering. I intend to hold on here with all my might." His name was Netanyahu. Yoni did not live to have grandchildren. He died, as we all know, rescuing 102 hostages from Palestinian terrorists during the raid on Entebbe. But if he had, here's what I think he would have told those grandchildren. After thousands of years in exile, the Jewish people are finally back home. Home in the land of their ancestors. Home in the land that so many have died fighting to defend. And home in their eternal, united capital of Jerusalem, never to be divided again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
As I said earlier, we're celebrating this 50-year anniversary of Jerusalem's reunification. We have events going on simultaneously in 50 different states. And it is 50 years in 50 states, but we want to make sure that this event lasts only 50 minutes. So instead of going to all of these events, we would like to give you a little sense of the support Jerusalem enjoys across this country by hearing briefly from a few of this nation's governors.
Hi, this is Governor Asa Hutchinson. This month marks the 50th anniversary of the reunification of the city of Jerusalem. In June of 1967, the State of Israel prevailed over its adversaries in the Six-Day War and entered the Old City of Jerusalem. After 19 years of division, Jerusalem was once again reunited and restored to its place in the Jewish state. Through the centuries, the Old City of Jerusalem has been the historical and spiritual center of the nation of Israel. And still today, Jerusalem remains the eternal capital of Israel, a monument of the Jewish people's love for their ancient homeland. It is my great honor to hereby proclaim June 7th, 2017 as the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Governor Phil Bryant, representing the people of the state of Mississippi. Today, we join Israel and all the world in celebrating and recognizing 50 years since the reunification of the glorious city of Jerusalem. I've been to Israel on 3 different occasions, and those wonderful trips have showed me the care and concern of the people of Jerusalem and how they reach out to all that would come and visit. I often tell them it's so goes Israel, so goes America. So as we issue proclamations and celebrations today and that 50th year anniversary for Jerusalem, I would just say to all of you, let's make sure that it is another 50 years, another 100, another 1,000 that Jerusalem stands as a beacon of hope to all the world. Shalom to you.
Dear Prime Minister Netanyahu, congratulations to you and your entire administration on the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem. 50 years ago, facing threats few countries could have known, Israel accomplished what many thought impossible, uniting the city of Jerusalem. In a mere 6 days, Israeli soldiers defeated multiple armies and entered the old city of Jerusalem for the first time as representatives of a modern nation. As we mark Jerusalem Day in the United States, we were reminded of both the sacrifices required and resiliency of the Israeli people. Today, Israel safeguards many of the world's holiest sites and ensures they are open to people of all faiths and nationalities. Even in the face of continued threats, Israel reaffirms its commitment to democracy, equality, and a free and open society. Coloradans celebrate Jerusalem Day with Israel, and we reaffirm our support for a lasting peace between Israel and her neighbors. With all best wishes, sincerely, John Hickenlooper.
Hi, I'm Governor Rick Scott. I'm honored to join you all to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem. I'm proud to say that the United States and the state of Florida have been unwavering in our support of Israel and their efforts towards a peaceful and democratic nation. The state of Florida considers Israel to be one of our greatest friends and allies. And over the years, we have joined together in support of peace and security for the Jewish community. I look forward to a continued partnership with Israel and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Governor Kim Reynolds of Iowa, and I'd like to congratulate Israel on this significant milestone. 50 years ago, Jerusalem became a unified city. As a result, freedom of religion and a strong democracy emerged. I saw this firsthand when I had the opportunity to visit Israel last year. I was so inspired by the way this country and its people continue to fight every day for those freedoms and democracy. In closing, I'd like to express my support for the United States-Israel relationship and to recognize Jerusalem as the unified capital of Israel. Congratulations again on this your 50th anniversary of reunification.
And now, please welcome Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear friends, Speaker Paul Ryan. Thank you, governors, senators, Congress, representatives, members of Congress across the board, across the parties. What a wonderful celebration of America and Israel friendship. Thank you, Ambassador Dermer and Ambassador Friedman. Thank you, our many, many friends in the Knesset, beyond the Knesset. It's a pleasure to address you from Jerusalem, the eternal, undivided capital of the Jewish state of Israel. Now, why do I say Jerusalem will never be divided again? Because I remember what it was like when it was divided. Now I start with a confession. See, I was born in Tel Aviv. But at the age of 2 days, because the circumstances didn't allow at the time for ready medical treatment, my mother decided to give birth to me in Tel Aviv, but immediately we went up the hill to the city on the hill, divided, wounded, besieged really. Besieged in the sense it was enclosed from all sides. And that's where I grew up. First in the suburb of Talpiot, which was in the southern part of the city. And I remember my mother telling me, it must have been 2.5, 3, she said, "Bibi, when you leave the house, you can't go right." Stop laughing. You cannot go right. You can only go left. Because if you go right, you hit the Jordanian barbed wires and the minefields and the snipers. And then as I grew up in this city, there were places we couldn't walk because there were snipers on the walls. And they shot occasionally Israelis. It was a wounded, divided city that had no future. And then on the 5th of June, I woke up to a resounding noise in my home in Jerusalem, and I climbed up on the roof, and I could see the bombs bursting in air. No, they were bursting on the ground right behind us. These were shells fired from Jordan without provocation. And many, many shells fell on Jerusalem. Many were killed. We were in shelters, some of us running between the shells in the streets. That's what you do when you're a little short of 18. And then we heard in the shelters Colonel Motagul say, "The Temple Mount is in our hands." And it was like a lightning bolt. I can't describe it any other way. And right after that, there was a hole that was pierced in the ramparts, right near where the municipality is. And I remember just this spontaneous flood of people, of Jerusalemites, me among them, flowing through that gap, going through the alleys of the old city. One alley after another, one alley after another, and then we reached the wall. And I touched those stones. We have a common saying, the Rock of Ages. I was touching the Rock of Ages. And everything was coming from those stones through my fingers to my soul. Abraham and David and Solomon and our prophets and the Maccabees and the ages of dispersion and torment and the ghettos of Toledo and the ghettos of Warsaw where Jews prayed, next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem, a call of salvation, of return, of redemption. This is King David. This is Jerusalem, as old as our nation. We came back. We united the city. We felt an elation that I think is millennial. I know is millennial. And then we proceeded to do two great things. The first thing is we ensured that Jerusalem was a free city for all. That's the first thing that we did. We made sure that the holy sites of Judaism, of Christianity, and Islam were available to all, unfettered, untouched. This is something that can be appreciated in retrospect because look around us. Understand what would happen to this, it's not even a square kilometer. What would happen to this less than a square mile if we weren't here? It would descend into horrible sectarian violence. It would descend into the worst barbarism that the world has seen since the outrages of World War II. We'd see mosques blown up, churches blown up, synagogues blown up. But we don't see that. We see that in this great convulsion that is taking place around us, there is one free city where Christians, Jews, and Muslims are free to worship undisturbed, and that's in the free, united city of Jerusalem. And that's how it will stay. Oh, and there's another small thing that we did. We guaranteed the freedom of religion, but we also guaranteed the freedom of markets. We sort of instituted free markets, not sort of, in Israel. And guess what? It's changing Jerusalem. A few weeks ago, a small company called Intel bought a Jerusalem company, which is a few hundred meters from here, for the tidy sum of $15 billion. And it gave this company the keys to handle all their worldwide autonomous vehicle businesses. So I can definitely say that Jerusalem is driving the world in more ways than one. But this is a benefit that accrues to all our residents, and we want to see this innovation, this genius, this entrepreneurship spread in our region to bring prosperity and peace. We are deeply, deeply indebted to you, our American friends, for supporting us. We know that you understand in substance and in spirit our quest for redemption. We know that you understand that the story of Israel, in many ways, the rebirth of Israel, and our return to this land and to this city, I think you understand in your hearts that this is a parable for all humanity. Because if the Jews can overcome the worst travails in history, that means there is hope for all humanity. I want to thank you for this brilliant gesture, and I want to tell you once again, America has no better friend than Israel, and Israel surely has no better friend than the United States of America. Thank you all, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. Army Brass Quintet performing Jerusalem of Gold.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. Please remain seated until Speaker Ryan and Ambassador Dermer have left the room.